So we are going to talk Tenet. All right?
Tentatively.
Tenet, hey. All right? And
what are we going to talk about it?
so we're going to really talk about the biggest controversy when it comes to this film and Christopher Nolan. There's two. One is a lot larger, so we'll hit that second. But first, we need to tackle the first one, which is complexity and sound mixing.
Oh, okay.
All right?
Yeah.
We're going to tackle these two issues. Now, the reason I'm tackling these is because the audience is split. Fans of Christopher Nolan are split hardcore. Some people cannot talk enough good about this film, and some people think it's Christopher Nolan's worst.
I don't think Josh falls into the second group.
No, don't speak for me.
Hold on.
Don't
hold
speak for me yet.
on. I don't think Josh falls into the second group because I don't think your issue with this is complexity.
No.
You know, I think a lot of people found this confusing. I think a lot of people didn't understand what was going on, and we've established after watching the movie a second time, that's not why you dislike the movie.
No.
So explain why you dislike the movie.
Okay, so Wyatt spoke for me. I hate the movie. It's a terrible movie. It's one of James Cameron's work.
James Cameron, that's right.
James Cameron's testosterone problem was because no. Who did this movie? Now I'm thinking James Cameron.
If you're
Nolan.
no, don't give it to him. If he's gonna bash, let him find it himself.
So mad.
I want him to go through his points.
All right,
Okay.
say it.
My mind is elsewhere now. I did not like this movie for basically one big reason. I watched it and I was a little confused. I watched it late at night for the first time and I was like, I'm a little confused, but okay. And then I watched it again because I wanted to understand it. And then I was like, wait, no, I didn't misunderstand it. It's a terrible movie. And this is why. I'll explain. I'm going to explain here.
Yeah.
Go for it.
So, Christopher Nolan is most of his films, like Inception and stuff. There's very complicated things, and the storyline is very complicated, like Tenet. But there is a very simple through line that grounds the story.
Mm-hmm.
Inception, for example, the very small concept is they are trying to plant an idea to get a guy to dissolve this company. That's a very basic concept.
They're getting paid to do that.
They're getting paid to get a guy to dissolve his company. Let's just say that. Let's not talk
His
about
father's company.
Yes. There's that basic idea, and how they're going to do it is go into dreams and all that stuff. And that very, complicated thing with going into dreams and whose dreams they're going into, all this stuff. This movie was the complicatedness to it, but the very basic motivation was not there in my opinion, or at least we didn't get enough of it.
I will say, just before you continue, the motivation for the movie comes later in the movie. It comes about the end of the first, beginning of the second act, and they kind of breeze past it, or they go past it quickly because the movie moves quickly.
Mm-hmm. And so I think that's why I don't like this movie, because just saying, and this is a spoiler, we're gonna have spoilers.
All right, you're spending a lot of time on your opinion. We got to get to the
big
conversation.
opinion. My opinion is very important.
No, people want to breeze your opinion, and let's get to the content.
Going forward and backwards, as cool as that concept is dumb if you don't have a reason to go forward and backwards.
Right.
And so what do we have just of going forward
Well,
and backwards?
I would say it's a little bit too much to say it's a terrible movie because you didn't like certain parts of it. It's still a very
cool concept.
Very well filmed movie, a very well acted movie, it's a good movie. It'd be like saying Top Gun Maverick is a terrible movie because I didn't like that, there wasn't enough of the villains.
Yeah.
No,
because there wasn't a through line. It's a terrible movie.
Because there wasn't enough dogfighting or something.
I don't think you can.
Because the whole film is training. The whole film is training for a
I don't
fight
think
at
you
the
can
end.
categorize a movie as terrible because of one thing you disliked about it.
The reason I dislike this film, the through line, you just said they do not talk about the idea of the film till the second half.
Mm-hmm.
Why do we not get the idea of the movie at the beginning where we're supposed to have it.
Right.
Well, you don't need it at the beginning.
That's fact. That's not just my opinion.
But
there is no secret agent film that gives you the through line up front. They always have to discover it.
I don't know. James Bond pretty
No.
most of the time
Mission
there's
Impossible.
It takes a while for the secret agent
hold on.
always to find out.
Usually they establish James Bond is off doing something. He's maybe with a woman. He's finishing up a mission. He's, doing something. And then they come and they're like, well, James, 007, we have this person who's doing this thing and we want you to go figure out what's going on.
Why they're doing this.
Right. They don't say they don't have that happen, that there's a person doing a thing until the beginning of the second act, and then you don't figure out what his plan is until you don't figure out what the through line is until we get to like the end of the second act. So I will say the movie is
it's at the big turn. The second
movie
turn
breezes past it really quick because everything's moving very quickly. I don't think that's enough to say that it's a terrible movie.
If you added one more scene, it probably would have cushioned it.
A terrible movie is Strange World. That's a terrible movie.
I did not watch it, so I cannot talk about Strange World.
A terrible movie is Thor: Love and Thunder.
Oh yeah,
that's terrible for a different reason.
That's a bad movie. To have one thing make a movie like a terrible movie, I don't think is fair.
No, that one thing, yes. I would agree with what that statement you just said. But if that terrible thing is the story itself, then yes.
But there is a story. And the story, even though
pretty much not.
Even though the movie is
really
moving forwards and backwards, the story is linear.
Yeah, it is.
You just have to follow it. It moves quick, but you have to follow it.
I followed it.
It's a lot less. Okay, I'm going to be honest. Everyone said this is really confusing. Upon second watch, when you understand the concepts, which is built to watch it a second time, upon understanding that, it's actually easier to follow than something like The Prestige. The Prestige is incredibly difficult to follow. But
I'm not saying
the Tenet was easier.
We're not saying that
it's a bad movie.
We're not saying you're wrong. We're saying you're wrong by calling it a bad movie or a terrible movie.
No, I can call it a bad movie if
you disliking the movie.
If one character didn't fit quite right, then it would be like, okay, well, I don't like that character. That he's kind of thrown off the movie. But I can't say the whole movie as a whole is bad. But I can because the story itself is bad, and so. What? Even though the actors deliver their lines in a convincing way,
the story isn't bad.
It's bad.
No, the story
it's terrible.
The story isn't
it's a
bad.
Terrible movie.
It's a unique story with secret agent tropes.
The Secrets of Dumbledore is a terrible movie.
Yeah,
because
Secrets of Dumbledore and this have very similarities.
Because the story is bad and there's no real through line.
Yes, this movie.
This movie has a through line that is overshadowed by the complexity of the movie, which doesn't make it a terrible movie. It just makes it
a different movie.
It makes it a less accessible movie. Would you agree with that?
No.
You would.
I like the word accessibility.
You wouldn't say that it's less accessible.
Yes.
He goes over the top with the concept, and we don't get enough of the story from the beginning, enough of the characters from the beginning, which makes the entire movie less accessible to audiences.
I wouldn't say that's why it's less accessible. I would say it's less accessible because some people might not understand the forward and backwardsness to it, and it might be confusing to most people, so they don't have the accessibility of watching it and being like, oh, I understand the whole plot, and therefore I just don't like the movie because I don't understand it. That's not my problem with it, because I watched it twice to understand it and realized the second time, no, the first time I understood it, it just... the way they told it was bad, of there not being that concept at the beginning to ground this, the whole high concept that he was trying to tell. It makes it's a bad movie because of that. And I can say as a whole it's a bad movie because the story is the movie.
I'm gonna be honest. I disagree with you wholeheartedly. I think this is a
So
brilliant genius before anyone else's time.
I would say Josh
concept.
falls into a strange category because there's people who really like the movie, or people who
love it.
enjoy the movie, and then the people who don't like the movie dislike it because of its concept, because the concept is confusing, because where we're going and how we're doing it is confusing, and Josh dislikes it because the storyline isn't the way he would like
isn't
it.
traditional.
Isn't traditional. It's not a traditional storyline. It doesn't follow a basic through line as much. It breezes past for the sake of concept. Which
You can't have concept without story, and he's basically just giving us concept with like very little story. And
No, not little story. It's a ton of awesome story.
So I would say that you fall into your own camp, which doesn't make you right.
It just makes it your opinion, which that's what I'm saying. We're spending a lot of time.
okay, as a whole, I'll say that it's my opinion. Yes, but I'll also say that this was Christopher Nolan's version of art, the story that he wanted to tell. So I'm going to give it to him. But just because that's like, let me use this as an example. In You, I saw this episode already. They would go to an art gallery.
Mm-hmm.
The guy had placed one egg in the art gallery and was selling it for like $20,000. An egg that you could buy at the store for 50 cents. And he said, this is art, so we're selling it for $20,000. In it, Joe is like, that's criminal. Why would you? But it's the same with this. Christopher Nolan is saying that the egg is art. The movie's egg is art. But I'm saying an egg is just an egg, and that's terrible to say you'd pay $50,000 for it.
Look, I didn't finish. I say you're not right, but you're also not wrong.
Okay.
Because of the art thing.
No, he's comparing Christopher Nolan's unique hard work body of work and saying it is a piece of art that he didn't have to put any effort for.
No, I didn't say he didn't put effort. Because
no, that's what you're saying. You're
there's
saying
very
basically
high- no,
the
hold on.
story has no effort in
Hold
it.
on.
That's
There's
what you're saying.
very high
That's what you're saying. You're saying it's
There's
a freaking
very
egg.
high
No, hold on.
concept there, but without the basic through line, the high concept is null and void because there's nothing to ground it to give for me to enjoy the high concept because there's nothing to. Like, why do we have this high concept of going forward and backwards without the reason to go forward and backwards? There's no reason.
So there is a reason. It's because somebody's trying to blow up the world. And that's usually a pretty standard secret agent movie thing.
Yes, that's
Now,
always the
look,
goal.
It is up to personal interpretation of what art is. Christopher Nolan put out the movie. He says, here's this thing, and everybody gets to interpret it differently.
Right.
I think the movie is complex and interesting, and what he does with the primary characters is unique. It's something we don't see very often, where he doesn't name our main character. He's just a kind of like a shadow who's moving through this world, and we're kind of learning about it with him. I think that's interesting. I think a lot of the movie's concepts are confusing, but I think a lot of them are interesting. And I don't think the movie is for everybody, and that's okay.
So, I will agree with Wyatt. I 100% agree with everything Wyatt just said because, let me go back to my egg
Good
analogy.
grief. Hurry up. We still
An
have to cover
egg-
sound mix.
An egg
Hold on.
is only an egg. We pay 50 cents for it at the store, but who puts that value of the egg, of making it 50 cents? You know, if you think about it, eggs are very unique. They have the yolk. They have the
They're grown inside a living thing.
They're grown. It's
artistic.
Why do we as humans put value on this egg and say it's only 50 cents when it is very much a unique thing and it is special? But as a story, yes, I'm not going to accept it as a thing because I don't like that.
we actually established this on the Midnight Special.
Okay.
We said for a movie to be a piece of art, it has to be,
Or for anything to be a piece of art.
it has
Is
to
this
be
the masterpiece
No,
story?
Wes Anderson covered it.
It has to be
Argument that we had.
the director's intentions, along with the audience's
Acceptance of that.
perception.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right? So half of the audience perceives this as a piece of art. The other half
Nolan's
of the
intention versus audience comfort is also a part of it.
Oh, that's very good. So we split the audience, but I don't think that takes it. I don't think that makes the movie less. I think this kind of conflict with this kind of movie, what we're talking about, makes the movie more interesting, because if the movie wasn't interesting, if there weren't two sides of this, there'd be no point to argue about it.
Right.
Okay.
Right?
I agree. But
so the movie is interesting enough, it's complex enough to have more intelligent and interesting arguments over the movie was confusing and I didn't like it, or the movie was a masterpiece.
I will agree that
the fact that Nolan can split
sat
people
here and
say,
argued, not just on this podcast, but outside of the podcast for probably, I would say, hours at this point.
Yeah.
maybe days.
No, not days. But
Maybe you two.
There's other stuff to argue about.
We've on multiple occasions talked about this movie and argued why it's not good and good. So I will agree. But if we're going to sit down and choose a movie, I will not put Tenet on, because I will not watch Tenet because it's...
And you might.
For me...
And I would.
It's not worth watching.
Not because if you give me the option to watch Tenet, I put it on every time.
No, I would rather put, like, Inception. Christopher Nolan has done so many good films. Let's watch Inception.
Now,
let's watch Interstellar.
Honestly, you give me a Chris Nolan film, I'll put any of them on.
Yeah, I'll put 90% of his stuff on.
Interstellar, I'm watching Interstellar.
Well, most people probably. Okay, I got to say this. We got to move to sound mixing, all right?
Okay.
And this is an online huge. Now, when Tenet first came out,
An online huge?
It was huge online.
Oh,
I'm trying to get my thoughts in order.
It's a big huge.
It's a big huge. Look, this is not argued. Because even major film directors reached out to Chris Nolan and said, "What the crap's going on with your sound mixing,
bro?
man?" All right. Now, Chris Nolan has gotten this critique through pretty much all of his films since Batman Begins. All right, but the worst of it came with Tenet.
Yeah. Can I, just off the bat, not knowing any reason why his sound is bad and all this other stuff, can I just take a crack at what I think? And I could be wrong with this. This could be wrong. But we talked about why Christopher Nolan, for Oppenheimer, we specifically talked about his filming, and he's doing some very unique things with Oppenheimer and still doing like film and stuff, because that makes it very, I don't even know how you said it, like the guild or something like that. No, remember we talked about the film for Oppenheimer and how specifically the type of stuff he does is unique because he uses his specific stuff.
I don't know what you're saying.
What's the point?
What are you trying to say? How does this apply to sound mixing?
He's trying to be too artful with his stuff to where it takes away from the basic sound cutting. There we go.
So he's not following conventional sound mixing with Tenet and with most of his films.
Because he's trying to be artful with it.
It's his intention is to say, I am trying to engage the audience. So he always approves. He's not overlooking sound mixing, and doesn't matter to him, so it comes out a bad mix. He is actually super involved with sound mixing. And he said every choice was to engage the audience. That means if you have a hard time hearing him, there's probably reason. For example, if you have a hard time hearing him, you're leaning in, you're trying to hear what they're saying. Or it feels like you're actually in the middle of the situation. In Interstellar, when Matthew McConaughey and his kids are riding through in the car through the cornfield, chasing the little flying drone, right? Mm-hmm. Matthew McConaughey is screaming stuff, and some of the words you can't hear, but it sounds like you might be in that car with them, because like your dad might scream at you, and you're like, "What did you say?" That kind of thing.
I would agree.
It's as if you're there,
which is what I said, the art form of it.
Yeah, but you didn't explain what that art form was.
It's part
intended.
of the movie. It's supposed to make you more engaged, and I think a lot of people have a problem watching it because we want to hear what people are saying. Mm-hmm. But I think what Nolan's trying to tell us is that there's more to a movie than just what actors are saying.
Yeah, and he's breaking conventional sound mixing to do it.
Like the sound of the corn going under the car. That's loud.
Very loud.
Or
the gun going off. If you like when they're in the dream sequence for Inception, and they're talking amongst each other, and then they start hearing them like the subconscious fighting back, and they start shooting at themselves, the subconscious army. It is jolting how loud those guns are in Inception.
And that's why I think even in Interstellar, we've talked about this before with Anne Hathaway's character going on like a really exposition kind of spiel about love and about time. A lot of people don't like it because it's a lot of telling instead of showing.
Right.
And it's not subtle. There's no nuance. But the same with the sound mixing. He's putting this out as loud and on purpose because he's telling a specific type of story. And I think it makes it more interesting.
I think so too.
I will say as a whole, maybe not just for the sound, Christopher Nolan we're talking about this, so ultimately he is creating something that we want to talk about and something we enjoy watching, regardless if it's bad or not.
Okay, come on now.
But he's making something that we all are talking about enjoying, so maybe he is giving us something. We didn't, you have to give them something that they weren't thinking they wanted, but they needed to watch.
The sound in Tenet, like the music, when the music is going forward, it's extremely interesting. When the music is going backwards, it's extremely interesting because the music going backwards, you can clearly tell it's going backwards, but it's specifically I think they specifically wrote the music to have a different tone going backwards to make you feel uncomfortable, out of place, but not to the point where it's like
it turns.
Like the music at the end of what was the movie we watched with Natalie Portman? They go into the bubble.
H something. I don't know.
I don't remember. But you guys, you've heard the music, I'm sure, on TikTok or on Instagram. At the very end, it's like that. Bwah, 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 bwah.
Yeah.
That's supposed to be very eerie, make you uncomfortable. It's very loud. He's doing a similar thing where the music's going backwards that's supposed to make you know where you are in the story. And when you get to the end and we're going forwards and backwards all the time, having the music there
to guide you,
to help you, it's supposed to be part of the story.
Unfortunately, I don't have a problem with the mix. It's just, or not the mix, the music choice, the music composing, the score. But it's a little forgettable compared to other Chris Nolan's films.
Oh,
and
yeah.
This is like one of the only films he didn't get Hans Zimmer's on.
Right. And Interstellar is the best, it's probably one of the best musical scores on the planet.
Yeah. Well, you about to sing John Williams, weren't you?
No.
Oh.
No, he was a bum, 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 bum. Yeah. That's
it's beautiful. Now, okay, getting back to the score. Do we think it was just a bad mix? He shouldn't be doing this. He should stick to conventional standards. Do you like what he's doing, but you're worried it's not working well? Or are you like, I'm all in. If he's intentional about his sound, I'm taking it as it is.
No.
Because it's a part of the art.
Yes.
You're on that train.
I'm on that train because other directors aren't doing it. They're not focusing on the sounds of the world.
Okay.
They're not immersing us into it with the sound mixing.
What train are you on?
Okay.
Because he's done this with all of his films. It's just Tenet got the most heat.
I'll accept it to a degree because I still have to be able to hear the conversations. I have to hear what I'm supposed to be getting. And sometimes you might, he's trying to tell you a story of giving you this one sound and it makes you think something different, but yet I can't enjoy the story because of it.
You remember on Prestige when they're at the funeral for the girl who drowned?
Yeah.
And Hugh Jackman's looking at Christian Bale. He's like, "What knot did you tie?
What knot did you tie?"
And he's like, "I don't know." And he's like, "You don't know?" And it's just, you're just kind of like, what the crap? And then as he's walking out, you hear Hugh Jackman just break all the decibels, and he's like, "You don't know." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That is the kind of feeling he's trying to bring you into.
Interstellar, you go from Earth where there's sound everywhere.
Yeah.
And then they go into space and there's nothing.
Yeah.
I think that was what, when I watched the movie the first time, initially got me. because we're so used to space movies.
Right.
You go in, there's always a boing. There's always like a bing, bing,
Yeah.
bing when you're in the spaceship
Yeah.
and like in music and stuff when you're in there. But in Interstellar, it's
Something
just
from John Williams.
quiet.
Yeah. I was going to do a little John Williams bit, but
Yeah.
I'd imagine something composed by John Williams as you're entering space.
No, they enter space with Michael Caine giving the "Don't go quietly into that good night,"
Oh, heck yeah.
and then silence.
Yeah. You're obsessed with it.
I'm gonna watch Interstellar.
What else we got? Was that
So
Interstellar?
we completed. You're on board. I think I didn't give my opinion. I think I'm here for it. Maybe he should run it by another director he trusts
Yeah.
and say, is there anything I need to clean up? Just a tiny bit that you don't really capture my intention here. You know what I mean? So maybe he should find a good friend he trusts who's also a director.
But you know what?
And you're not on board.
I'm gonna watch. Sorry. Go ahead.
Go finish yours.
I'm gonna watch Oppenheimer now, and I'm gonna be listening for the things that
Are loud.
that are loud, that he's
Intentional.
or that are quiet,
Right.
that he's doing intentionally, because I think this movie's gonna have a lot of it.
Oh, there's an explosion that happens.
Silence before explosions.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna say this,
And
and then
time.
I'm gonna
pay attention to time. That's a huge narrative for Chris Nolan.